It is 3 in the morning. Your eyes just opened in the dark. You don't know why, but you are wide awake now, staring at the ceiling. And a small knot of worry is already pulling tight in your chest. You have to be up in 4 hours, so you do the modern thing, you panic, you tell yourself something is wrong with you, that your sleep is broken, that tomorrow is already ruined before it has begun. You reach for your phone to check the time, and the cold glow only makes it worse. But here is the strange part. For most of human history, waking in the middle of the night was not a problem to be solved. It was the plan. Your ancestors expected it. They had names for the darkness on either side of it, and the single unbroken block of 8 hours you are lying there, grieving for, may be one of the most modern, most artificial things your body has ever been asked to do. So how did people actually sleep before the world had lights? To answer that, you have to meet a historian named Roger E. Kirch. He spent years buried in the kind of records most people never read. Old diaries, court depositions, medical books, prayer manuals, plays and poems and letters going back centuries. He was not even looking for sleep at first, but the deeper he dug, the more he kept tripping over the same odd little phrase, again and again, in document after document. People did not write about their sleep. They wrote about their sleeps. Plural. There was a first sleep, and there was a second sleep. Once Kirch saw the pattern, he found it everywhere. Hundreds of references, across languages and across countries. In English, first sleep and second sleep. In French, premier sommeil. In Italian, primo sonno. The phrases were used so casually, so offhandedly, that writers clearly assumed everyone already knew what they meant. It was not a strange habit worth explaining. It was simply how the night worked. So picture it. The sun goes down. There is no switch to flip, no screen to scroll, no reason to stay up. A few hours after dark, you lie down and fall into your first sleep. You sleep deeply for 3 or 4 hours, and then somewhere around midnight, with no alarm and no disturbance, you simply wake. Not in a panic, not confused. You drift up out of the first sleep into a quiet, calm, wakeful hour, and the world around you is doing exactly the same thing. What did people do in that gap? Almost everything. They lay in the warmth and talked quietly with whoever was beside them. They prayed. There were manuals printed specifically with prayers meant for this hour. They thought about the dreams they had just woken from, while the dreams were still close. Couples often made love then, and doctors of the time openly recommended it, suggesting it was better after the rest of a first sleep than at the weary end of a long day. Some people rose to tend a fire, or check on animals, or step next door to murmur with a neighbor who was also awake. This middle stretch even had a name in English. It was sometimes called the watch, or the watching. And then, when the quiet hour was over, you lay back down and sank into your second sleep, until the light came. So what happened? Where did all of this go? It did not fade slowly over thousands of years. It collapsed, and fast, in a sliver of recent history. Kirch traced the disappearance to the spread of artificial light. As streets and then homes filled with gas lamps and later electric bulbs, the night stopped being a wall and became a thing you could push back. Coffee houses stayed open. Evenings stretched longer. Bedtimes slid later and later, squeezing the night from one end. And a new idea took hold. The idea that time was money, that lying awake was waste, that an efficient person slept in one solid, productive block and got on with the day. The two sleeps were compressed into one. The watch in the middle was erased. And by the early 20th century, the very words had vanished from common speech, taking the memory of the whole pattern with them. Within a few generations, people forgot they had ever slept any other way. So thoroughly that when you wake at 3 in the morning now, your first thought is not recognition. It is fear. But is the old pattern really gone? Or is it just buried? This is where a sleep scientist named Thomas Wehr enters the story. In the early 1990s, Wehr ran an experiment that sounds almost cruel in its simplicity. He took a group of healthy people and, for a month, he took away the night they were used to. Each evening he placed them in darkness for 14 hours straight, roughly the length of a long winter night before electricity, and then he watched what their bodies did with all that dark. At first they slept long and hard, paying off the debt of modern life. But after a few weeks, something remarkable happened. Their sleep split in two, on its own, with no instruction. They would sleep for several hours, wake for a calm, quiet interval in the middle of the night, and then return for a second stretch of sleep before morning. The exact rhythm Ekirch had found in those dusty diaries reassembled itself, from scratch, inside the bodies of modern people who had never heard of it. And there was one more detail. During that wakeful middle hour, Wehr's subjects showed high levels of a hormone called prolactin. In plain terms, prolactin is linked to a state of calm, restful stillness, the drowsy peace you feel half dreaming but not asleep. They were not lying there anxious. They described the time as serene, almost meditative. Their bodies had not just split the night in two. They had filled the gap with a kind of quiet that we no longer leave room for. So that should settle it, right? 2 sleeps are the natural human way, and the modern 8-hour block is the mistake. Except the truth is messier and more interesting than that. Because a different researcher, a sleep scientist named Jerome Siegel, went looking for the natural human sleep pattern in a very different place. Not in old European books, but in people living today, much as our distant ancestors did. He and his team studied hunter-gatherer and forager societies, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Tsimane of Bolivia, groups with no electricity, no alarm clocks, no artificial night. And those people, by and large, did not split their sleep in two. They slept in a single consolidated stretch, much like the modern block we think of as artificial. So which is it? How can sleep be both things at once? The answer is that there may be no single, true, original way for a human to sleep. Your sleep is not a fixed machine running an ancient program. It is a living thing shaped by your world. The 2-sleep pattern Ekirch found seems to belong to a very particular situation. The long, cold, dark nights of higher latitudes, where the night was simply too long to sleep through in one go. Near the equator, where Siegel's groups live, and where humans first evolved, the nights are shorter and warmer, and one stretch of sleep fits neatly inside them. Your ancestors did not have one sleep schedule. They had whichever schedule the darkness around them demanded. Which means the thing your body is really built for is not 8 hours, and not 2 sleeps. It is flexibility, the ability to bend the night to fit the world. Now carry that back to your own bedroom, at 3 in the morning. When you wake in the dark and feel that spike of dread, you are very likely not broken. There is a real chance your body is simply doing an old, deeply human thing, surfacing for a quiet hour the way it has surfaced for countless people across countless centuries. The problem may not be that you are awake. The problem may be what you have been taught to feel about being awake. Ekirch himself suggested that a great deal of modern middle-of-the-night insomnia, the kind where you wake and then lie there panicking, may be the ghost of this lost pattern, a natural waking that we have learned to experience as failure. Your ancestors used that hour to pray, to reflect, to hold someone in the dark. You have been handed the same hour and told it is a malfunction. So you fill it with anxiety and the glow of a screen, the 2 things almost guaranteed to keep the second sleep from ever coming. There is something quietly sad in that. A window your body opens on purpose, a small inheritance of stillness passed down through thousands of years, and we have learned to slam it shut with worry. So the next time it happens, try to remember this. The waking is older than the fear of it. It is 3 in the morning, and your eyes have just opened in the dark. For most of human history, that was not the night falling apart. It was the night doing exactly what it was always meant to do.